Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the May 2022 meeting of the Health, Environment, and Social Services Committee. My name is Brandon Smith. I'm the chair of this committee, and I want to welcome you to tonight's meeting. I'm going to read through some housekeeping remote meeting announcements that we typically give at the start of every meeting. So please listen close, as this is the guidance that applies to all of our meetings. As this meeting is being called to order, please note this is being recorded for the purpose of transparency and for permanent public access on the CB2 YouTube archive. All attendees should keep your microphone muted when you are not speaking. District staff will actively assist in maintaining this protocol. It is the practice of Brooklyn Community Board 2 to conduct remote meetings with all committee members' cameras on for full transparency. We encourage all attendees to also leave their cameras on, particularly if you're given the floor to speak. To maintain appropriate discussion and voting process, I will make it known when and which topics are open for comment by committee members, board members at large, and the general public. If you wish to speak, please use the WebEx feature in the participant panel to digitally raise and lower a hand, and I will call on you in order. If you have questions that fall outside of public comment time, please type your questions in the chat panel and we will address them if relevant to the matter and as time permits. If any attendee experiences technical difficulties during the meeting, please consult webex.com. After the meeting, please reach out to the district office. It's our desire to provide access to all of our neighbors, regardless of physical ability or limitation. If you require accommodation or assistance for full participation, please contact the district office 72 hours before any public meeting. I also want to reemphasize the point that we make at every meeting, which is that it is fundamentally everyone's responsibility on this call to treat each other with respect. At this committee, everyone is respectful of each other, whether you're a member of the committee, a presenter, a member of the public, an applicant, or a staff member of the community board. Anyone who is not being respectful to anyone else, I will ask the board office to remove you from the meeting because that's been our practice. With that, I'm going to proceed to the introduction of each of the committee members. Ms. McKnight, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Nicole McKnight, co-chair of the committee and board member.
Thank you. Ms. Thurston?
Hi, I'm Jessica Thurston, secretary of the committee and secretary of the full board.
Hey, Mr. Andrews, you're on the line, are you not?
He is. Victor, you're on mute. Mr. Andrews is here. He said hello earlier.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Member of the board and the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews. It's nice to have you. Taya, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Oh, hello, applicants. This is Taya Miller from the board office. Nice to see you in person.
We're also lucky to have at least one board member here tonight. Latrell, do you want to briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, good evening, everybody. My name is Latrell, and I'm in the board member.
Thank you. Are there any other board members here in attendance that I missed?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Hubbard Kamanan Weary, a member of the board.
Sorry I missed you, Carolyn. Nice to see you.
No problem.
All right. So normally this would be the point in the meeting where we would launch into our committee business for the evening, which is slated to include several liquor licenses and a discussion of district needs. And we're also going to be discussing our upcoming health fair. But in order to take any action as a committee, we have to have 6 committee members present. Presently, we have 4 committee members present, and we've contacted the other 2 people who could potentially attend. We hope that they will be attending soon. But if we're not able to get them in time, we won't be able to take any action on the liquor licenses tonight and in the form of a vote. So I just want to say that at the outset, and we'll definitely give everybody a chance to speak, but we're going to try to take things out of order in the meeting to get some of the later stuff done first. And then if some of the committee members, the two that we need to get quorum show up, we'll launch right into doing the liquor licenses, and hopefully we can get everything processed as quickly as possible. At this point, I'm going to suggest that we discuss our statement of district need items for the month. And I think Ms. Miller, you had something you were going to present to us. Perhaps you could take the lead on that now.
Sure thing. I will try to keep this short. I was not expecting an audience quite this large. So let's do this in 3 parts. And I'll share a screen. So there's nothing secret on this item. Just for the many members of the public that are here, you won't have the same access as the members of the board do. But members of the board, if you're interested, I would direct you to this link, which I'm putting in chat first, and I will share screen so that folks can see what I'm talking about. Okay, can you see a spreadsheet now?
Now I can.
Okay, let me zoom in a little bit. So the spreadsheet looks a lot more complicated than it is. So let me break it down for you. This is our timeline. So every year, all 59 of the New York City community boards participate in an extensive exercise in which they determine their statement of district needs and budget requests. So this is the way in which each community district prioritizes what needs most attention in the coming fiscal year, which always starts July 1st. So the timeline this year is that in May and June, the committees should be brainstorming. And by the end of June, we would hope that each of our 6 working committees will have 13 first draft requests entered into this worksheet on the appropriate tab as per below, right? In July and August, the board members and the office staff can be conducting research, ideally would be working with fellows on deep dive research, etc. I have to decline this request, Ms. Silver. Unfortunately, I am not able to do this in the course of the meeting. I'll do my best once I'm not sharing screen. That was a request for transcription, sorry. I only have 2 hands. So September is when the big action starts. Unfortunately, the city schedule doesn't quite align with the community board schedules. All 59 of the community boards are on summer recess for the entire month of July and August every year. This follows legislative summer recess, right? Very common. In September, about 50 of the city agencies make themselves available, and all of the ones that you're familiar with, including all of the ones that liaise with this particular committee, will make themselves available for 3 days of consultations that are conducted with each of the 5 boroughs. Those of you that have been with the board for a few years will remember that in previous years, we've sent out calendar invitations as soon as those dates are made available. They are coordinated by the Mayor's Office of Budget, the OMB, Office of Mayoral Budget. But they do take place over 3 days. By September 29th, the committee contributions have to be finalized. That's the firm deadline. You can't submit any more ideas after September 29th. I'm going to get this later, but there will be 2 ways to submit ideas this year. The reason September 29th is a firm deadline is because in October, from September 30th through October 11th, the board is going to be voting on all of the submissions from all 6 working committees and prioritizing it through a Google survey that is available only to the board. That gets ratified at the general board meeting on October 12th. And then the office has about 2 weeks to create what is usually an 80-page document with addendums and letters of support and additional illustrations that are submitted to OMB and DCP right around Halloween. So that's the timeline. That's the longest part of this overview. I'm going to skim over everything else because with that link, you can find this and go through this yourself. I highly recommend checking out these resources and links. Of particular interest are the ones that are highlighted orange. And this one, the yellow one, tips to strengthen submissions. This is prepared by the Department of City Planning. Super helpful. So there's a process overview, there's a timeline overview, there's the OMB budget publications page, the budget request category guide. So that's sort of that's bumpers for to whom you can address your budget requests, right? The tips to strengthen submissions is really helpful and sort of underscores the data and the rigor and the level of completion that is required for a request to be considered robust enough for an agency to really consider. There's also the official DCP profile of our district, which is public information, the archive of all previous submissions from this district since 2008. Some of you know that we did not submit one in 2014. The office was then, as now, going through some staffing transition. And then there are current working docs, and I will continue to add any additional materials sent by OMB or DCP as they become available. If you need a reminder, these are the current 6 working committees and their scopes as defined in the current bylaws, which again, haven't been updated since 2012, but they will be very familiar, including links to the 4 city and 1 state agency that this committee directly liaises with monthly. The second tab is a remix of the responses to last year's requests. I'm going to zoom out to a ridiculous level so that you cannot read it, and it's just a big blur of color for a really specific reason. I color coded this. So the yellow is yeses, blue is maybes, red is no, green is more action is required, and purple is we don't hate this idea, but you're barking up the wrong tree. So the reason I'm zooming out is because I want to celebrate how much yellow there is, and specifically how much yellow came out of this committee. I think you guys did a really good job of following that Mad Libs process last year and making sure that your requests were pretty robust. However, pay attention to any boxes that are green or purple, because that means that that's an opportunity to either remix your request for this year, or it's an opportunity to say, oh, this actually isn't the right forum for this request. And some of the agencies actually did suggest whom you could direct the request to instead. So just going through this list, lots of yellow, some additional action, some maybes, quite a bit of purples, and not so many reds this year. So that's pretty positive. I definitely would say that this list is to-do list. It's a recommended actions that you can take for this year, so please review that. And then these tabs are all empty because we haven't started this work yet. So the next link that I would like to direct you to is, I can't chat it right now because I'm sharing screen, but it's tiny.cc/CB2 ideas. And again, this is going to be for board members. You've gotten this over email. So if you look left to right, we remixed this a little bit this year. We need to know who's the board member that's leading. So if you are a legislative body, it would be which city council member is sponsoring this motion, right? Which board member is leading this request? Is it a capital request or an expense request? Capital request is going to be a long-term request for something that costs more than $500,000 and is something that the rule of thumb is generally it's something that will be of public use for more than 5 years. An expense request is something that just you want something to come out of a city agency's regular daily operating budget, right? We need to identify from which city agency budget. If we make OMB guess, you're probably going to get a no thanks. So we want to be really targeted about, we need to know which agency we're talking to when we make a request. What specific district location is the need? Finish this statement. The problem is, keep it short. Because I would say for now, keep everything in this worksheet very short because it's going to go through a whole committee voting process and a board voting process. What's some data that verifies that the problem exists? Do we have news articles? Do we have previous speakers that have come to this committee in the last 12 months that have presented really useful information that sort of support that this is a known problem? Then we move to the request statement. What is the result that you want to see? Finish that sentence, right? What's the proposal? What's the idea? What's the data or policy history that supports that proposed solution? And finally, are there any partners in the district that could either serve as a collaborator for doing the research this summer, or there go those scooters. If you hate that noise, we're gonna talk about that at transportation next Thursday. Or more importantly, who are some organizations in the district that we could ask for letters of support? So normally applicants are coming to the board asking for letters of support for their projects, but that can be reversed in this process. We can ask folks, hey, you came and spoke to our committee about this really, about this problem that we'd love to solve in our district. Would you be willing to sign a letter of support for our pursuit of a solution, right? So I know that lots of folks, probably nobody loves spreadsheets as much as I do. I get that. So if this is difficult for you, if you don't like Google Docs, I'm going to invite you, board members, go to the link that was emailed to you yesterday. Because if you go through this Google survey, and reminder, you do not need to sign in. This is a weird little thing. This required actually has nothing to do with any of this. Required just means that if you see a star next to it below, it means it's required. You do not need a Google account to do this. You don't have to sign it at all, right? If you go through this, it's only 4 sections. This survey actually asks you every single one of these sections of questions. When you do that, it's going to automatically populate your responses here into this tab, which is really ugly right now because no one's entered anything yet. Basically, if you fill this out, your responses will automatically go here. So you can do that on your phone, you can do it on your tablet, you can do it when you're online at the store, you can do it on your commute, you can do it in the middle of the night when you can't sleep and you're thinking about all the issues in the district. It's just a lighter weight way to reach the same end. That is it.
Well, let me be the first to say that was wonderful, Taya. I think this was probably one of the most fantastic presentations of the district need process that I've seen in 8 years of being on this community board.
Good.
I think we got a real sense as to first of all, the difference between capital and expense items, which I don't think has ever been an issue that has been really clearly presented to us in the past. And it's a good pathway, I think, to really take some of our ideas and turn them into real suggestions that will be beneficial for our goals. And the concept of getting a letter of support from these other parties is something that I don't think we've thought of before, and something that might potentially add value. And if you know, I can definitely think of some relevance for some specific items. So I think we have this. Maybe we can have a brief discussion about this. And for everybody's awareness, we still don't seem to have quorum yet, or any additional members. So I know I've been thinking about a couple of district needs myself, and I know that some of you also have expressed interest, and the folks who aren't here unfortunately have a lot of other ideas, and I'd love to hear their feedback as well. But just to let you know what I'm thinking, I think for one, there's definitely something we can take forward with increasing the city's funding of composting efforts. Particularly like pickups need to be really supported and increased. I definitely took something away from that presentation where the once a week is clearly not enough. And if we're ever going to get to a point of 2030 zero waste, which doesn't seem incredibly likely, but we're really going to have to, the city's really going to have to ramp up its composting pickup efforts. So there's definitely going to be funding needed for that. There's going to be more baskets needed for that. There's going to be education needed for that. There's going to have to be a lot of different efforts. I'll put everything in the sheet, but that's one idea. Before I go into more, for the members of the committee, does anyone else have any other ideas they want to chat about? Jessica?
I will also put these in the spreadsheet and spare everyone too much detail now, but I'm going to submit something around bioswales and permeable pavement, some things that I think fall under DEP, though like many environmental issues, they're sort of intersectional. But yes, some things that are specific to stormwater runoff issues and other sort of energy conservation concerns in the district. I am also, oh, thank you, Taya, for defining that. I'm also, I know Alejandro knows more about this, as does Emily, as do other members of the committee, but I'm going to submit something around the mobile shower units and other services for the unhoused in our district, as well as potentially something around additional social services that are needed for outreach to the unhoused, particularly in Fort Greene Park and elsewhere. So I'll think of a better way to articulate that, but those are some issues that I'll be adding.
That's wonderful. You might want to touch base with Akaswa on the social services, because I think
Oh.
she had indicated some interest in working on that.
Okay.
I don't know where she was, because this was January when we last discussed this, but it
Right.
might be good just to check in with her to just
Okay,
see if
yeah,
she
good idea.
thought of anything. But that sounds wonderful. Really great things to have in line with what we want to do and what you were saying before back in January. So I'll look forward to seeing that, and I'm sure we all will. Thank you, Jessica. Victor or Nicole, anything on your end?
Sure, Brandon, when you sent us the email and asked us to do a little research, I started looking into the area that I had an interest in, which related to mental health. And the city is really doing a great job in sharing the type of services they have related to behavioral health, mental health. So I was looking at where are the gaps, where is an area where there can be more resources or help. And as I was looking at various articles, I realized that there is a gap where it comes to financing community-based behavioral health providers. So I'm going to explore that a little more and see if that's where we should be tapping into the city and asking them to provide more reimbursement. And I think it's very specific to some of them aren't receiving, they haven't had rate increases in about 10 years for behavioral health services as it relates to Medicaid and Medicare. So I plan on delving into that a little more, and also with maternal health to see where there are gaps. I know that there's been services related to doulas, but to see if there's other things that can perhaps help in that area. And that's where I am so far.
That's wonderful.
Mhm.
And I think that's great. We had discussed before trying to come up with this stuff by June. So, you know, it's great that we all are still kind of got it in the works. Before I try to seek some other folks' ideas, the other thing I was really thinking about was from when Mr. Gross presented to us on his partnerships with the different homes to try to increase the funding that goes to targeting different private buildings and trying to get green technology conversions in place. I'm gonna have to rewatch that meeting a little bit to get some of the specifics, because he got a little technical, but I want to further that request, because it had a district need feel to it, and something that I think could really benefit the effort to make our community more greener. My final idea is unfortunately a personal idea, which I'm not sure if it falls under us or transportation, but Ms. Miller, maybe you give me your opinion. But the number of electric vehicle charging stations in our neighborhood in downtown Brooklyn is relatively small. In fact, the only electric vehicle charging stations in the Brooklyn Heights neighborhood are controlled by the Department of Emergency Management, and the members of the public can't use them, even though they're on a public street. And I don't, as a person trying to purchase an electric vehicle, it seems very difficult to find charging generally, and it would be helpful if the city could try to provide more charging, because hopefully we'll be, as a community, going more in this direction in the future with more electric vehicles. And it's aside from just like the occasional spot that is like, the options are literally like, I think there's some charging down at the Navy Yard, there's some charging down at like in Park Slope somewhere on a street, and it's very, very limited. So I know the city's trying to roll it out, but it definitely seems like something that they're gonna that we could use some more of. But at the same time, I feel like the agency to direct that to is the Department of Transportation. So, Ms. Mueller, would you think that's something that's got to come through Transportation Committee, or something that we could document in our committee?
I highly recommend that board members feel free to submit ideas across any committee, because the full board is going to vote on all of the final ideas anyway. And I think this is so much of the board structure is very siloed. And I think this is one, once a month we get to come together or you get to come together as a full board and work across silos. And this is the other big opportunity, I think, where you can sort of work across disciplines and do the multidisciplinary issues. So I say go for it.
Okay, well, that's great. Thank you. Members of the board who are not members of the committee, did you have any suggestions for potential HESS district needs? Don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to open the floor to you. And I also will open the floor to members of the public in a second too, just because we're here and this is something we're discussing, and I love hearing from different people about issues. So feel free to just use the raise hand feature if you're a member of the board or a member of the public and you want to make a comment about the district needs for our district.
Mitchell Ratchick has a hand up.
Oh, okay. Mr. Retchick, I think you had posted in the chat about the helicopter noise.
I did.
So
as one of many things, but that's one of the
before
we get into it, that's one of the things that I've noticed in the past year. I'm a resident of Fort Greene. I live on Clermont Avenue. I'm really here for the alcohol permit for the Masonic Temple. So, but while we're talking about other things, I've complained to every city council person I could possibly find about the number of helicopters that are flying back and forth on Vanderbilt, over Vanderbilt and Clermont. They fly really low. At one point, I think I was counting 15 a day, which is extreme. And they fly really low and they really hear disturbing. So I would love something to be done about that. Please help.
Yeah, I know. I got you. The thing about our process is that we have to kind of take problems that are going on in the community and issues like this and try to contextualize them into something a city agency can work to fix, because that's our process. Is we make these requests to city agencies, and then the city agencies will come back, a few months later, like what Ms. Miller was showing earlier in the meeting, and say either yes, we agree, this is a good idea. And so it's something that we can think about. I mean, I don't think anybody likes having a lot of helicopter noise, and I'm
okay with a little helicopter noise. That doesn't bother me. But 15 times a day, really low, like it shakes the windows. I know my neighbors don't like it. They literally run back and forth up and down Vanderbilt, east to west. So I've been in the neighborhood for a long time. I would say the last 2-3 years, it's gotten really bad. And to the point where it's really noticed. Like, once in a while, it's like, okay, a helicopter goes by, not a big deal. 15 times a day means it's a flight path. So I have friends who work for the FAA, and and they told me, yeah, that's a flight path. Like someone changed it on the map, and they drew a line, and that's where it's going.
Well, It's good to hear that that there's a, that it's good to hear anybody from the community come and express something for this discussion, because I really appreciate having this opportunity to hear something like this. I will say that a couple of years ago, there was a piece of legislation that was brought to before, I think, Congress, where which would have banned helicopters all across New York City, and our community board enthusiastically voted to support that piece of legislation as a general body, not this committee. And I don't know what's happened since that point, but we'll take a look and see if there's anything we can craft into a district need that would correspond.
I'm more than happy to talk offline. You know, if you guys need help or working on stuff. I also love spreadsheets, by the way, and I'm a creative director in advertising, so I can help make them look really nice.
Oh, that's great. Well, thanks for letting us know about that. All right. Take another check around the room to see if we have quorum yet, but I think the answer is probably no. Any other thoughts on district meeting? Oh, we have Mr. Lupo. Mr. Lupo, you had something you wanted to add?
Hey, yeah, so I'm joining this meeting because I am the community outreach liaison for Center for Community Alternatives, that's CCA, over at 25 Chapel Street. So I'm here to, thank the committee and thank the board for their long-term support. And it's because of your support that we've actually been able to expand and are now offering medicine-assisted treatment for people who have opioid use disorder. I know that in the past, you might have known our adult services department working mostly with people who had been in reentry from incarceration or in some phase of the justice system. And now we're expanding to really, tackle the opioid epidemic head on. Now that we have a staff physician who can prescribe buprenorphine, and along with our other services that we've had as far as drug treatment, anger management, domestic violence, full comprehensive holistic approach, for people who are in some phase of the justice system. So, I'm happy to answer any questions you guys might have now or later, but I was hoping to really just network and outreach and maybe, get some email addresses and reach out to you guys and, see what other agencies, we can work together with.
Okay, great. That's good to know. And hopefully we can hear from you again in another capacity. Any questions from anybody for Mr. Lupo about Center for Community Alternatives?
I'm going to leave my contact information. So, feel free to get in touch with me offline, especially if the stuff, a lot of people might want to talk offline or privately. I'm very easy to get in touch with. Cell phone and email is the best way to reach me. So.
Okay, great. So thank you for that. Thank you for everybody on the discussion about district needs. I think in the light of the time, we're 37 minutes into the meeting. What I'm going to suggest that we do is have the applicants present, and we'll get public feedback on each of the applications, and we'll ask questions and get the opportunity to discuss the applications with everyone. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to vote unless we get 2 more people come to this meeting. So we'll have to take it from that point. And I'll start the agenda, not the formal agenda, because we haven't approved an agenda for this meeting. But I think that the first party that we had to hear from was 1 Water Street High Tide. Is there someone here from that location?
Hi, Ms. John, are you?
Yes, I was able to unmute. I'm the attorney and I'm here representing Fireboat LLC tonight. I believe we may have been to the committee already, and I'm not sure because I've already presented on this at least one time. However, this is a operator who is looking to put in a oyster bar out on the pier. My understanding is this has been, I believe, approved by the city. However, this is a operator who is looking to put in a oyster bar out on the pier. My understanding is this has been approved by the city. However, this is a operator who is looking to put in a oyster bar out on the pier. My understanding is this has been approved by the city. However, this is a operator who is looking to put in a oyster bar out on the pier. My understanding is this has been approved by the city. However, this is a operator who is looking to put in a oyster bar out on the pier. My understanding is this has been approved by the city. However, this is a operator who is looking to put in a oyster bar out on the pier. My understanding is this has been approved by the city. However, this is a operator who is looking to put in a oyster bar out on the pier. My understanding is this has been approved by the city. However, this is a operator who is looking to put in a oyster bar out on the pier. My understanding is this has been approved by the city. However, this It was operated by a prior operator pre-COVID for quite a long time at this exact same location. He's looking to come in. They have hours of operation from 8 a.m. to 12:30 at night. They wouldn't start alcohol until 10 a.m. They'll obviously have coffee and breakfast type things in the morning. It's a 1,500 square foot place. It has about 1,225 square feet of customer area. It has a small area on the side for food preparation, 2 bathrooms, and locked storage for the food and beverage in the evening. Again, this is an oyster style bar. It's seafood centric. These operators, I have listed, quite a few. They operate several other places in the state parks in both Manhattan and in Brooklyn. They have an excellent reputation. I understand from the owners that they've had no violations ever at any of their locations. They're quite successful and responsible. They're looking for full liquor. There's no schools or churches within 500 feet. Occupancy is at 199. There are 24 bar seats and 36 tables. The bar, as you can see, is a square bar. It's a 14.5 foot diameter, so 50 feet in total. They have a limited menu that is seafood centric. They employ about 40 employees. They have background music only, no live music, no karaoke, no DJs. There's no dancing at the premise. And they currently don't have any need for security guards at this location. It's a very low key type place, same as several of their other locations. Within 500 feet, there are several other bars that are open. I have a list of them. We have Umami Dumbo at 22 Old Fulton. They have ramen. It looks like Purple Fett, looks like Italian food. 14 Old Fulton Street, looks like it sells ice cream. There's a Shake Shack. It looks like there's an Italian place on Fulton Street. There's some place called Express Management and St. Anne's Warehouse. One is a performing arts center. There appears to also be a Mexican place. So the menu and the offerings that they have are different than the other places that are within 500 feet here in Brooklyn Bridge Park. One of the things that they have that is unique is they're right next door to the Fire District Fireboat Station. At one point, they were seeking to also license the boat, but that is on hold thanks to a lot of regulatory issues, but mostly COVID related. But they are looking to get open here on the pier. They were here, I think once or twice before, and they were approved, but because of COVID, they never went forth and opened. So because more than a year has passed since then, they're here again for approval of basically the exact same business plan and operation that they had already been approved for. So I'm not sure if there's other questions the committee may have or other information I might be able to provide to better help you make a decision on this location. So I'll open the floor to questions people have.
Thank you, Ms. Thurston.
Thanks, Brandon. Ms. Jong, I have 2 questions for you. One, I recall when we reviewed this before, we had some back and forth around the closing, and I thought we landed at midnight. But if you could just confirm that the time you presented on the application today is consistent with what was previously approved. That's my first question. My second is, has the applicant re-engaged with the Fulton Ferry Landing community group just to let them know what the status is?
I'm not aware that they have re-engaged. They did do the petitions, they did put the notices, but I do not know if they have actually contacted in the past week or two that particular group. I can report back to you, but I don't honestly have that answer right this second. Okay. And I believe, if it was 12 o'clock that was agreed to, certainly that's all they would be approving. But I thought on this one that they had looked for 2 a.m. and it had been agreed at 12:30.
Okay,
I apologize.
I don't remember.
I
So
apologize if I misrepresent. We've done 4 of these in the past 2
No,
months.
I
so
was just
may-
asking for clarification. That's fine.
Okay.
If that's what was the same, then that's fine. Thanks.
I believe we're not looking to, do anything other than what was approved. But I thought they had asked to have it open longer, and they were said this is about as long as they would be allowed at this location, even though they had asked to have it open until 2.
Okay. Well, Ms. Jung, I would suggest, and remember, we can't vote on anything tonight, but maybe this is an opportunity where you can reach out to the Fulton Ferry Association offline, let them know that what your plans are, and hopefully you can work together to kind of make sure that when you launch this year, that kind of you're all on the same page. I know that there's been some concerns previously expressed about operating in that area, and I want to make sure that everybody's voice gets heard, and they're a part of our community down there, and I don't want their voice to be lost in the process. So maybe that's something. Would you be willing to
The answer
reach
is
out to them?
yes. The answer is yes, but I see here in the chat that Fulton is present tonight. And then I also see that somebody was able to look at the prior minutes. It looks like Taya has put in, and she's confirmed that 12 a.m. was approved and 12:30 had been proposed. So then obviously we would have to consent to only, or request or amend our application to only be till midnight if that was what was previously approved. But I understand Fulton is here tonight, so could we?
Ms. Jung, since I've raised the question, I just want to underscore Brandon's point, which is please take that conversation offline since we're not voting tonight.
Yeah, I would second Ms. Thurston's comments about this. We want to try to give a forum for everybody here, but part of the issue that we experience is from time to time is that there are critical members of each community where we're in, and while the community board is here to hear these applications, it's really important that the applicant take those conversations to the community, hopefully before our meeting. And our meeting wasn't set up here tonight to be kind of the first engagement between you, and we'll certainly hear from the community too about this. But this is not going to be a long discussion about this
Okay.
item, particularly because we're not going to vote tonight. But it's a great opportunity, I think, for you to get out and do this. But I just had one other question, which is that considering what was presented last year and what is being presented now, has the size of the location changed any in terms of tables, in terms of the square footage of what's being proposed?
Absolutely not. The only thing that did change is the shape of the bar went from rounded to square. The size of it and the footprint of it are the same, but the original shape was curved, and now it's more of a square. That's the only change between last time and now.
Okay, great. All right. Any other questions from the committee members?
Mr. Smith, the attendee marked as Bill with his hand up is actually from the Fulton Historic District, if you'd like to give.
I'm aware of that. Thank you.
Oh, okay.
Any questions from board members for the applicant? Before I open it up to everybody, Bill, I'd be more than happy to give you the floor.
Thanks, Brandon. Yeah, this application came before your committee in 2019, 2020, 2021, and now again. And I just want to point out, following up on your question about whether anything had changed, there is something major that has changed in that the ferry boarding for the New York City ferry moved from Pier 1, Brooklyn Bridge Park, over to Fulton Ferry Landing just about a month before this last meeting in April 2021. So we now have 4 different ferry boarding lines for the South Brooklyn route and the East River route, two uptown, two downtown, and on the pier, the same pier that is going to share this concession and which also has the egress to the barge music. So that's a consideration. It wasn't really taken into account at last April's meeting, but it should be taken into account because of the fact that even though we're not at summer yet, the lines for the ferry, especially the Uptown East River ferry, they go from the back, the river side of the pier, all the way down almost to the street, almost to Water Street. You can have on a summer weekend, not even summer, in April, we've had it already, you'll have 100 people waiting online to go uptown to 34th Street or Long Island City. So the fact that a major portion of the pier has been carved out for the concession is a bit troubling to us. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Fulton Ferry Landing Association. We're not taking a position for or against the application at this time. We want the committee to understand this point because, when you take this establishment on the pier, plus the fact that there was to be a fireboat concession as well. Now, I don't know if that's permanently off the table or if that's going to come back at some time. So you have two different bar concessions plus all the people on the pier. We're a bit concerned, and I just want to, set the stage, here and now, that even if this liquor license is approved, if it comes to pass, that we see utter chaos on the pier because of overcrowding of all the people waiting for the ferry, plus all the customers coming to the oyster bar, etc. We'll be back to the committee, to the board itself, to ask for reconsideration of a liquor license, and possibly even going to the Transportation and Public Safety committee, because if public safety is involved. Thanks.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate you showing up and voicing that concern. And I'll tell you, I remember the discussion we had in April of 2021 on that subject, and we're back again with a very similar discussion now. Like I mentioned before, unfortunately, we're not going to be voting on this tonight, but we'll take your comment into consideration, and we're going to conduct a vote on this and hopefully the other items next week, a week from today, with the full board. So you'll have a broader audience for these points.
Yeah, and I think I'll send Taya I've got a panoramic shot that I took on Saturday of the extensive line situation on the pier, just so that everybody who's maybe not from this part of town can see it.
Okay. Anyone else have a comment from a member of the public with respect to this application?
Mr. Chair?
Kathy, I'm sorry.
Mr. Andrews? Miss Adam, I'll get you right after Mr. Andrews.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm wondering, are both of those bathrooms accessible, being that they're going to be where they say they're going to be, I wonder?
Ms. Jung, would you happen to know if your restrooms are ADA accessible?
Yes, they are. They've been approved by the city. They will have to be with the health department and building departments. So yes, and they're the same restrooms, I believe, that have been used by prior operators as well.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Adam, you had your hand up as well.
Yeah, I'm also board member of Fulton Ferry Landing Association, and I would like to support Bill's concerns. And I would like to also say, if it is possible that the new concession owners would reach out to our community, it would be helpful.
Right.
Considering what is happening down there on the weekend is absolutely impossible. And I think for anybody to really know what is happening there, you have to be there even on a sunny day in the middle of the week, especially on Friday evenings. It is out of control, and there's little consideration that this is a historic district, and it would never happen in any other historic district like in the Brooklyn Heights, that these things can just be placed there without very careful consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to the next application at this point, but Ms. Jung, I would just ask, please make an effort if you can. My strong suggestion would be to follow up with the Fulton Ferry Association and see if you can reach some common ground with your understanding of your operations versus their concerns about the area.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you all very much. Next item on the agenda tonight is 168 front /85J Lifetime Fitness.
Hi, good evening. This is Ben Savitsky of Bernstein, Radio and Savitsky. I'm an attorney on behalf of the applicant.
Okay.
Claire Colleen should also be on the line. She's actually from Lifetime, so she'll provide some information about the operations. I'm just going to quickly go through the application if that works for you guys.
Sure. What was the name of the other person you have here?
Claire Colleen.
Oh, Claire Colleen. Okay, great. Thank you.
So this is an application for a full on-premises liquor license to be used as part of the operation of a new health club facility at 168 Front Street. It's in the new Front and York building in Dumbo. The applicant is LTF Club Operations Company, Inc. They're better known as Lifetime Fitness, and they currently operate more than 150 health clubs in the United States, 8 of which are here in New York, and there are more in development nationwide and also in New York. Lifetime Fitness currently operates many of these clubs with liquor licenses for their cafes and their restaurants, which are inside the clubs. And we actually have applied in New York for licenses in the same manner that we are doing here tonight. We actually included a list in our application of the Lifetime Fitness operations in New York that currently have liquor licenses. As I mentioned, Claire's on the call with me tonight. She can answer questions about the operations, but I'll run through the specifics, which look like they are up on the screen as well. So this is at the corner of Front and J Street. The mixed-use building that it is called Front and York. It's going to be operated as a full-service health club, as I mentioned, and what that means is that it's going to have weight rooms and with free weights and rooms with exercise equipment like treadmills and stair climbers. There's going to be yoga studios and spinning studios, lap pool, a basketball court, and then of course the locker rooms and the saunas. What we're here for tonight, there's actually going to be a coffee bar and a cafe for members of the gym and also for the public to use. This is where the alcohol is going to be served. Alcohol, just get this out front, is an amenity to the club. It's not the main purpose of the club. It's actually a very, very small percentage of the total revenue of the club. And I think it's about 1 to 30% of all their food and beverage operations is actually alcohol. But it's something that people like when it's there. If you could go to the diagrams, I'll take you through what the space is going to look like and where the actual alcohol is going to be. So the space is 2 floors and a mezzanine. The entrance is on Front Street. If you enter on the ground floor on Front Street, and we haven't gotten to that diagram yet, but you'll see it. It's a typical fitness reception area. There's going to be a coffee bar. The coffee bar is primarily for coffee, but I mean, that's how most guests are going to use it. But there will be a time during the day when it is activated with alcohol. And what that means is that you can grab a beer there after playing basketball. These diagrams look very small, so you probably can't see them, but that's all that's going to be going on the ground floor is a reception area and then this coffee bar. You could take the steps down and you can go to a lower level. If you want to go down one more or up, I'm sorry. Up one more. There, oh, okay. There it is. Okay, so that's the lower level. This is where you're going to find most of the exercise equipment. You can see the basketball court, the pool there. Really, alcohol is not going to be down here. The reason it is considered part of the licensed premises is because if alcohol needs to be moved along the spaces, it has to be licensed. If it's stored in one place and it's going to be walked over to another place, that's why this is licensed. We don't expect people to be taking alcohol down here, and we actually have an internal policy where people are not going to be permitted to take alcohol outside of the coffee bar area, and then a cafe that we're going to get to on the mezzanine. So if you go back up to one of the other diagrams, you're going to get to the mezzanine level. There it is. So the mezzanine level is where you're going to find our cafe. The cafe is going to have the majority of the food and beverage operation. It's going to have a menu of breakfast items, light snacks, entrees like burgers, sandwiches, rice bowls, salads. And the cafe will also offer alcohol as part of the full service aspect of this space. There's also an exterior courtyard that is an extension of this mezzanine cafe where guests will be able to eat outside and have a drink with their meal. That's the extent of the alcohol service. It really is just an amenity to the people who are at the club, which is also open to the public. You as a member of the public can walk in there and you can get something at the coffee bar, or you can go up to the cafe and have a healthy meal, and you can also have a drink. The coffee bar is the only stand-up bar on the premises. There's no other bar. In total, there's going to be 35 tables inside, 103 seats for tables, and there's going to be 6 bar stools at that coffee bar, which is the one stand-up bar. Outside, there are 6 tables and 70 seats. The majority of these seats are really for kind of lounging for after you work out, you can go and sit outside. Our proposed hours of operation for the premises has a space closing at midnight daily, 7 days a week. The outdoor area closes at 8 p.m. during the week and 9 p.m. on the weekends. The space is only going to be using recorded background music. It does not have any operable windows, and the space has been soundproofed as a gym, so it's pretty sufficient. With that, I'll open it up to questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Savitsky. A couple of ministerial things, as it now appears we have quorum here at the meeting, so I want to formally kick off the meeting. First of all, I'm going to ask Ms. Cobb, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm a Kosua Cobb and I am a board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harrison, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure, John Harrison.
Okay, great. Thank you. We now have quorum with the caveats that there will be no COVID-19 update tonight because Ms. Anadu was unable to join us, and we moved the district needs up to the beginning of the discussion. Could I get a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
So moved. Moved by John, second by Jessica. Does anybody oppose or abstain from approving tonight's agenda? If so, say so now. Hearing none, the agenda has been approved. I think we're in the middle of a discussion here with the applicant about this item, so I'm gonna avoid doing further business. And I have a couple of questions to start off, Mr. Savitsky. Could you give an understanding as to what kind of private events will be going on at this location, and to what extent there will be security there?
Sure. So the private events that we're talking about are not private events where somebody comes and they buy out the space. The private events we're talking about is if the fitness club wants to have a small event for people who enjoy running or are members of the club, they will have a small event where they close off one of their spaces and they offer food and drinks to the runners club. It would only be for a few hours. Things like this. It's not like somebody's going to rent it out for a bar mitzvah or for a wedding.
Okay. And did you say you had security there, or you?
I don't. Claire, are we going to be having security?
We do have security cameras, and of course there's a check-in process whenever you come into the facility. We get names, phone numbers, but no ragers will be thrown at Lifetime. These are, I'm talking happy hours, and event-wise, maybe 1 to 5 events per year. Very, very minimal.
Okay. And what's the outdoor space like?
So the outdoor space is it's a courtyard that's right off of the mezzanine where the cafe is. And it's got some high top tables and then some loungers so for people to sit.
At what time does the alcohol service stop there?
8 p.m. during the week, 9 p.m. on weekends.
Okay,
And there's no alcohol service out there. It's not like it's like a waiter service out there. You would get a drink inside and you'd be able to bring it outside.
is there any other outdoor seating, or that's the only outdoor seating?
That's it.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
All right, Mr. Andrews, you have a question.
are all your bathrooms ADA accessible because on all floors?
Claire, do you have an answer to that one? I imagine it's a brand new build. Everything is elevator accessible, so I believe that everything would be, but Claire?
Yep, absolutely. Brand new build, and we have a code compliance department within our construction team that makes sure we are compliant ADA and otherwise for local and federal.
Gotcha.
All right. Any other questions from members of the committee? Okay, hearing none, I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry, I
open.
have one quick question and I could not find it. Do you mind
Oh,
if I
go
ask-
ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. Have you, and I'm sorry, I may have just missed this. Have you engaged with the Dumbo Action Committee about the space, just to kind of talk with them and let them know this is coming in?
We have not. It's certainly a group that we can reach out to.
Okay, cool.
All right. All right, any board members or members of the public have any questions for this application? If you can use the raise your hand feature or indicate you'd like to raise a question, I want to make sure there's an opportunity for that. While we're waiting, Mr. Savitsky, the hours are outdoors is going to close at 8 p.m. 7 days a week. Indoors would close at what time? 7
No,
days a
I'm
week.
sorry. It's midnight closing inside during the week.
Yeah.
Outside, it's 8 p.m. from Monday through Friday and 9 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. All right. And it is background music only, you said?
Recorded background music only. Yeah.
Okay. All right. I haven't seen any other questions. So does anyone on the committee want to make a motion?
Yeah.
Make a
I
motion.
offer a motion to approve the application.
Okay, I'm going to consider Ms. Cobb making the motion and Mr. Andrews seconding the motion. Any discussion on this motion? Hearing none, I vote in favor. Ms. Thurston, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Cobb, how do you vote?
Favor.
Mr. Andrews?
In favor.
Mr. Harrison, how do you vote?
Yes.
And Ms. McKnight?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for your time.
Good luck. Next on the list tonight is 317 Clermont, Brooklyn Masonic Temple. Do we have somebody here from that location? Anyone here from the Masonic Temple?
Mr. Paneth? Mr. Matthew Paneth, I believe you're unmuted, but we are not able to hear you. Can you test your mic, please? Nope. The line is very garbled. We also cannot see you. We were able to see you earlier. Yeah, Mr. Paneth, the connection is really not good. Maybe you could disconnect and try to reconnect to the meeting and we'll come back to you.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'm going to move on to the next item on the agenda. 245 Dekalb, Harmony Inc.
Michael Kelly, representing the applicant. And Sam Barron is with me under the name Matt Barron.
Mr. Paneth, okay, there we go.
Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes.
Okay, this is an on-premise liquor license application for Harmony Dekalb Inc. We're located at 245 Dekalb Avenue between Clermont and Vanderbilt Avenues. The premise was formerly occupied by Megabytes from 2009 to its recent closing. They had a restaurant wine license. We're a full-service American fare restaurant serving brunch, lunch, and dinner. Hours of operation are 10 a.m. to 12 a.m., 7 days a week. We have 13 tables, 40 seats, and 5 seats at the bar inside. All seating is on the first floor. We will be applying for the open restaurant seating program, probably with 2 tables and 8 seats on the sidewalk next to the building, like our predecessor had. There would be no seating in the street. There's a bus stop there. We'll have background music inside, no outdoor music, no live music, no DJs. The applicant's owner also operates the Emerson Bar at 561 Myrtle Avenue, which he's had an on-premise liquor license since 2010, and also operates Suzumi Restaurant at 545 Lorimore Street. There he also had an on-premise liquor license since 2012. We did submit approximately 82 signatures, 19 of them from Dekalb Avenue. And in closing, like at his other locations, Sam hires from the neighborhood. He is estimating the hiring of 18 to 20 employees. If there are any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Trying to look through and get the application. So this outdoor seating is going to be at the in like a street side shed or something?
No, it's going to be 2 tables, one against both of them would be against the building on either side of the doorway.
Okay. And
there's no street, there's no shed, there's a bus stop there.
Okay, gotcha. And what's the proximity to residents for this business?
There's residents above us, there's residents around. Sam did go out, got about 82 signatures, 19 of them right from Dekalb Avenue right there.
Did we speak to the residents above?
That would be Sam, if you want to answer that. Sam, you have to unmute yourself.
Sorry, I've unmuted myself. Hello here, yeah. I have not spoken to the residents upstairs. I know the landlord has, obviously, and they're aware of us. I basically spent my time on the street in front of the building, and I did not run into them. But I was there on the street talking to people and neighbors, probably for a total of 10 to 11 hours on a few different days. I would certainly be willing to talk to them.
Okay, I think all we can ask you to do is just to try to make an effort to speak to the residents, and if they have any concerns, to listen to them. But appreciate you answering the question. Members of the committee, questions for this application?
Question, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Andrews.
Maybe you can ask the question for me, because they're tired of me asking the same question over and over again.
That's fine. Do you all happen to have ADA accessible doorways and bathrooms at your location?
Yes, there's a ramp from the street. I believe it's concrete that rolls in, and there is an ADA sized bathroom as well as a smaller second bathroom.
Okay.
Like it. Got it.
Questions from members of the community or other board members?
Can I add to what Mike Kelly said, or is that not necessary?
Well, if you want to say something briefly, that's okay. We're
Okay.
going to try to get the meeting move along, but if you feel something pertinent, it needs to be said, feel free to say it.
I do. The food was described as American fare, but to be specific, we're going to continue the diner tradition that's been there for 74 years. So I just want to be clear, it is American fare, but we will have during the day like a like diner service.
Okay. Have there been any concerns expressed from anyone that you spoke to or via the landlord from anyone else about the location?
None at all. The location has been a diner for what I understand for 74 years. The landlord operated it himself with his father for 34. So all the people I spoke to, new and old residents, were very enthusiastic about a diner coming back to that location specifically.
Okay. Great. Members of the committee, does anyone, oh, we have somebody from the public. Ms. Bishop, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I live above this location, so it's nice to meet you, Sam. I'm just here out of curiosity because I wanted to learn more about it. The landlord hasn't given us any information, but I don't personally have an issue with it. So just wanted to chime in.
Okay, great.
Thank you for coming and introducing yourself.
It's nice that you all have such a great interaction. Let me just have a point of clarification for everybody that as a point of decorum and in the course of our meetings, because not all neighbor applicant communications are as friendly as yours, the comments should be addressed to the chair. So I just ask everybody, try to avoid being engaged in a dialogue, whether it be friendly or not so friendly. At this point, thank you for your comment, Ms. Bishop. Members of the committee, does anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay. Mr. Andrews, is your motion to approve the application?
I approve, yes.
Okay. And was there a second that I heard?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Harrison with the second. Any discussion on the motion? Okay, I heard no discussion. I vote in favor of the application. Mr. Andrews, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Thurston, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. Cobb, how do you vote?
In favor.
Ms. McKnight?
Yes.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
And I think that is everybody. Thank you very much. Good luck with your new establishment.
Thank you. I'm going to mute myself.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Andrews.
Just to let you know, Matthew is back. If you didn't know.
Matthew. Okay. Well, I've got Joe and Sal's Pizza here on the screen now, and to try to expedite things, I'm going to go ahead with this one, and we'll come back.
Michael Kelly again.
353 Myrtle, Joe and Sal's.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Michael Kelly again.
You're muted.
Mr. Kelly, yeah, you got to come off mute. Thanks.
I'm sorry about that. Okay, Sebastiano, Sal, and Joseph are here. They're the three owners. They might be in, they might be out. This is a restaurant wine application for Louis Du LLC, doing business as Joe and Sal's, located at 353 Myrtle Avenue between Carlton and Adelphi Streets. It's a pizzeria, pasta, Italian restaurant. It's a neighborhood place. The people coming in are all from the neighborhood. They've been open and operating since January 6th of 2020, so almost over 2 years. They've had no problems. They've had 3 tables and 10 seats inside and a 2-seat bar counter. They have a backyard with 6 tables and 12 seats that they've been using since they opened, not in January, but when the warmer weather came around in 2020. The hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday, 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday. They have background music inside, no music outside. They also operate another Joe and Sal's at 842 Franklin Avenue, which has been open since 2016. We submitted 107 signatures of support that the owners accumulated over a 2-day period. It's a neighborhood place, so getting that support came very easy for them. And if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer.
Sure. Could you just briefly go over the outdoor seating again for this place?
They have a backyard that has 6 tables, 12 seats. They've been operating, they started with COVID, operating in the backyard, and they've had those seats and tables since then. And the people coming there eating are basically people from the neighborhood. You know, it's not a place where anyone's coming, spending an hour eating. They're having something, hero, they're having some pizza, and they're leaving.
Okay. Any questions from members of the committee?
Yeah, what's the cross streets again?
We have Carlton Avenue and Adelphi Street.
Carlton and Adelphi, okay.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Kelly, would you be able to advise as to the ADA accessibility for this location?
Yes, they have, it's ADA accessible and they have an ADA bathroom.
Okay, great. Mr. Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Kelly, amongst those more than 100 signatures from the neighborhood in support of this application, do you know, Michael, are any of them from either the building in which the business resides or the adjacent building on either side?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, in lieu of the fact that we would all like to move the meeting along, and maybe it's anticipatory of me, Mr. Chair, but I'm not hearing many objections from members of the committee, I move to approve.
Well, I'm going to ask to table that for the time being because we haven't sought any input from the public at this point, and
Can
I
I
want to make
second
sure
that?
Mr. Harrison, would you consider withdrawing your motion for a moment so we can seek
You can
public
table it,
comment?
Mr. Chair.
Okay, I think we'll do that. I'll come back to you. Anyone from the board or members of the public who have a question about this application, 353 Myrtle, Joe and Sal's? All right, hearing none. I believe you had a motion, Mr. Harrison?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank
I'll
you.
second.
And Mr. Andrews seconds. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I vote in favor. Ms. Cobb, how do you vote?
Favor.
Mr. Harrison, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Ms. Thurston,
Yes.
and Ms. McKnight.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
Thank you, everyone.
Next on the agenda, we'll come back to the temple, but we're already rolling with these beer and wines. 147 Greene, Prima, Brooklyn. Do we have somebody here from that location?
Hi, my name is Daryl Noon.
Hello. You are the applicant?
I am.
Wonderful. Okay, if we can get this application up on the screen, feel free to tell us about your place.
Sure. I will try to be as succinct as the lawyers have been. So Prima is the new name of this business. It's at 147 Greene between Washington and Waverly. And it was called Primrose Cafe before. It's a very adorable cafe that I went to. I've lived in the neighborhood for 2 years. I live on Washington and Waverly. And I used to come here every morning and see this space, and I fell in love with it. And I wanted to extend the hours to be a wine bar. I currently have a wine bar and a wine store in Manhattan called People's Wine. I'm the managing partner and operator there. But I wanted to have something that was in our neighborhood that felt like fun and sweet. So the hours will be a little bit more, in my mind, the demure side. We'll do 4 p.m. for wine and beer and cider only, except for Saturdays and Sundays, because I'd like to have a brunch service, and then close the backyard at 10 p.m. every night, and Monday through Thursday, 11 p.m., and Friday, Saturday, 12 a.m. Oh, and ADA. There is no ramp yet, but I have a general contractor who's making one, and the bathroom is ADA approved. And there are people who live in the building above us. The neighbors whom I've met from that, I've given my personal phone number if they ever have any problem. I also live 80 steps away from the space. So if there's ever anything happening, I can always come by and fix it. Any
Great.
questions?
Thank you very much for your presentation. So the outdoor space is a backyard, and could you just go over one more time what kind of conversations have been had with the neighbors about the backyard, or because you're operating right now, are you not?
So we're operating as a coffee shop. The previous tenant has a license here already to sell beer and wine, and they've had it for the 12 years that they were in operation before. So the backyard has 12 tables, 24 seats. It's gonna be like a cozy wine bar with a backyard that we'll hope to make weatherproof in the winter time.
Okay. All right. But you've spoken with the folks above you, and they're supportive of this. Great.
Yeah, and they seem to like wine as well.
That's good. That's good. It's probably good for you. It does seem like a very residential neighborhood, but appreciate you sharing the additional details. Any questions from members of the committee for this application?
Yeah, where exactly is it located again?
It's 147 Greene Avenue between Washington and Waverly.
Oh, Greene, okay.
I have a question too. How many people are you planning to hire?
For the evening times, we'll have 4 servers and 2 kitchen people.
And these are going to be newly hired folks, or that you're going to bring on for the added service that you have?
Yes, there's some of the people who work in the daytime have expressed wanting to work in the evening time as well. So I want to make sure that we're giving them opportunity. And then also people who already work with me at my other job or my other business will also be coming on as servers here as well.
Okay. Well, one thing that we try to emphasize, because there are large pockets of poverty within our community locally, is while it has no bearing on your application, please consider reaching out and hiring locally from our community, particularly Fort Greene Snap, Brooklyn Navy Yard, and Ingersoll Community Center are good places to go, where there are people who desperately need employment and hopefully would be great additions to your staff maybe. So I just encourage you and everyone else, so I don't repeat it throughout the meeting, to consider this in terms of hiring locally.
Definitely.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee, members of the board, or members of the public here about this application? I see we have somebody, Nia. Floor is yours.
Hey, hi, yeah. My name is Nia. I actually live above Prima, and it's a super cute cafe, and I'm excited about this. I was just wondering if maybe there could be special backyard, like slightly earlier hours for weekdays, just because the cafe itself starts pretty early. So that would be like 14 hours of noise a day, because they start at like 7 cafe wise. Yeah, just as above. Yeah, I was just thinking.
Miss Noon, are you willing to consider maybe like 8 8 or 9 PM for the backyard? It is a very residential neighborhood.
Definitely. Yeah, so we open at 8 a.m. And if there was a way that we could maybe do the closing on the weekdays at 9 p.m. and then on Saturday or Friday and Saturday at 10 p.m., would that make you feel better, Nia?
Well, just to point out that question one more time, Ms. Nguyen, we don't ask the questions back and forth to the folks from the public, but appreciate you being willing to be flexible. We'll try and pick this up in our deliberations on this. Any other questions from the public or members of the board about the application?
Yeah, the only other thing that I was going to say is that I want to also be conscious that I think there's like a mental health facility that also shares this backyard that's above Waverly. And yeah, I just want to be conscious of them as well. But that's the only other thing. Yeah, because they have a backyard, and I know that they let the residents out in the back sometimes for the summer to like cool off a little bit. And just like with the added noise, I want to be conscious because there aren't other restaurants like that share this backyard or that are on this block that close really after like 4 p.m.
Okay. Ms. Nguyen, is there a different facility or business that shares the backyard?
No, it's just us. Chef Katsu is next door, but they don't have a backyard space.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for all of that. Are there any other comments or questions that could be raised before we vote on this item? Hearing none, does anybody want to make a motion?
I make a motion.
Okay, Victor move to approve?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll second your motion. We have a discussion on the motion. What does the committee think about the backyard times? It seems like the applicant is proposing to close at 9 o'clock on weekdays and 10 o'clock on weekends.
Sound good to me.
Yeah, that sounds super reasonable.
He seems very flexible.
Okay. And so that would mean that the backyard will close 9 p.m. on Sunday to Thursday night and 10 p.m. on Friday and Saturday night. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So that's a condition of the motion. All right. With that said, I vote in favor. Ms. McKnight, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Ms. Thurston?
In favor.
Ms. Cobb?
Yes, in favor.
And I think that's everybody.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck in your new with your new service. Next up, we've got 162 Montague Ding Soup Dumpling. Do we have somebody here from that location?
Yes. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we can hear you. If you can just state your name first, that would be great because we just see your phone number.
Sure. Yes, my name is Owen Chen, and thank you for inviting me for today's meeting. I'm here represent for the Ding Soup Dumpling INC. Basically, we are a full menu restaurant, service dumpling and the noodles. We open 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. 12 tables, 36. We only have the background music, no DJ, no dance. And the owner has a restaurant in Sunset Park, Brooklyn since 2016. No complaints, no violations. Any questions?
Thanks for your presentation. Just to cover off Victor's question before he gets here, are you ADA accessible?
No, because we are unable to do it because it's building's old. Previous restaurant has a liquor license before, but we only need the restaurant wines and beers.
Okay. So you said you're not ADA accessible for your front entrance, but is your bathroom,
No.
do you have an ADA accessible bathroom?
We have 2 bathrooms.
Right. Can somebody with a wheelchair use the bathroom?
Oh.
Okay. Well, you got the answers. Any other questions from members of the committee for this application? Well, I'll ask you, what is your plan with regards to hiring? Are you planning to hire locally, or what is your plan in terms of number of people you're planning to hire and where you're going to target people for this application?
Right now we have about six employees. It all depends if with our growth sales. I mean, if we need more people, we're definitely going to hire more people locally.
Okay. And just to confirm this, do you have any outdoor seating?
No.
No outdoor seating. And this is, I'm just going to take from the name. This is dumplings. Is this the kind of food that you have?
Yeah, dumpling and noodles.
And noodles. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And you're 10 o'clock, 7 days a week indoors with just background music.
Correct.
Right. Questions from members of the public or other board members for this application? 162 Montague Ding Soup Dumpling. Hearing none. Does anybody want to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
What is your
Move to
motion?
approve.
I second.
Okay, second from Mr. Andrews. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none. I vote in favor. Ms. Cobb, how do you vote?
In favor.
Mr. Harrison, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Andrews,
Yes.
Ms. Thurston,
In favor.
and Ms. McKnight.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. Good luck in your new,
Thank
with your
you.
new service. All right, we'll
Thank you
go
so much.
back on the agenda to the Masonic Temple. Do we have someone on the line now from the Masonic Temple?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, you sound much better now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've switched to my cell phone as opposed to my laptop. I was not aware that connection issue was going to be there. But here we are.
Okay, well, you can proceed to introduce your application and state your name also, please.
My name is Matthew Pamit. My LLC is LWABK LLC. I'm trying to open up with the board's blessing. Concert venue, performance arts hall, dance theater, theater, etc. at the Brooklyn Masonic Temple.
Okay, what was this building used for previously?
Previously, there were concerts happening, dating back till the latest of 2014, but the operator had pulled out and was acting as the talent buyer at Le Poisson Rouge in Manhattan. The space has also been used since then on a private rental basis to other event companies. And my understanding is a lot of those were dance music, late night type events. And my application has a restriction of timing that would make it prohibitive for those events to happen in the interest of being friendly to the community.
Okay. What kind of discussions have you had with the community leading up to this?
I stood outside the building, asked people if they lived in the neighborhood, and encouraged them to send letters of support. And from people I spoke to, I only got positive results, and I got 7 emails to come in. From that, a handful of people said they would join this meeting. I was checking, and I believe 2 of them dropped off. But I've been getting positive responses from people who live within the neighborhood, and they would be excited to see concerts and other events happening at the Masonic Temple.
Okay. Well, I think the probably the biggest source of issues that we see in our committee are private events, and just because you never know who's actually managing it, and I really would just kind of want to understand what's the plan when these events are being held by some third party. Who's going to be managing it? Will you or someone from your business be there to kind of oversee things? How will security work? Those are immediate thoughts that come to mind.
Private events will only be on the booking side of things. I will be operating myself. I will be operating the bar and the security team, and there will be a minimum of 1 security guard per 75 attendees. All ticketing will be visible to me, so I can see the advanced ticketing and be able to staff additional if there are walk-up ticket sales.
Okay. And what's the proximity of this establishment to residences?
Residences are across the street and past the parking lot. So there are no affixed buildings that are neighboring. So there's plenty of room for any disturbance to dissipate, and we will monitor the outside to make sure people are acting in an appropriate way when they come to our establishment.
Okay.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Andrews would like to ask about ADA accessibility.
They do have an elevator that goes down. The problem with that is if you're in a wheelchair, you may not be able to get in there because it's not wide enough for that. That's on the downstairs level. But also, Mr. Chair, the Masonic Temple was also used for the Board of Elections as well. They used that for early voting, just FYI.
Okay. Mr. Paneth, did you want to speak about the degree of accessibility you have?
The building told me that they were fully accessible. The information that it is not accessible to a wheelchair via elevator is new to me, and I don't believe in my information that Michael Bernard, the president of the temple, has had that problem before. That was not disclosed to me, and I will do everything in my power to make sure accessibility is granted. That is a big concern for me, and I very much care about that.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Thurston?
Yeah, I'd just love to know more about your management experience of spaces like this and of the relative size of those other venues.
Yeah, I was the head bartender of both Warsaw and Webster Hall, and loosely helped with management of those. I have experience in concert promotions, being production manager and talent buyer for such concerts in venues of this size. Warsaw is a 1,000 capacity room. Webster Hall is a 1,500 capacity room, and you know, that's part of my motivation is I miss that type of work and I want to come back. And in terms of you know, bar and restaurant, I've been at Emma Peel Room, formerly RPM, for the past 8 years, and Marshall staff as well.
Okay. What kind of efforts are you undertaking to mitigate noise that will come from the venue. You can imagine a concert venue in a neighborhood with residents is something that could be loud. So what is your plan?
Fortunately, there are no residential buildings that are directly next to the Brooklyn Masonic Temple. There is a sizable parking lot and an entire street to cross in between this and the neighbors. And just like any other management of a venue, we in our sound install, we are going to test the system and make sure that we are in compliance for the decibel readings. And we don't have any open windows. We won't have doors that stay open during performances. They will only be used for egress. And it'll be content. Our operation will be contingent on our compliance.
Okay. In the event that folks from the community end up hearing something from this, because perhaps it gets through the windows, would they be able to get in contact with you, and how would that work?
When I originally posted my my notice to try to be on last month's docket, and then the timing of the mail prohibited that, my personal phone number was on that notice. I encourage the community to be in touch with me at all times. My phone number is 516-313-8070. My personal email is matthew.paneth@gmail.com. Anyone can reach me at any time. I'm happy to be a voice in the neighborhood.
I'd just like to make a comment.
Ms. Cobb? Sure.
I know the Masonic Temple is in the neighborhood, and they currently have a lot of affairs there, have always had a lot of affairs. And I don't think it's been really a problem for the community. I can't speak for the whole community, but it doesn't seem to have been. So I just wanted to support what you're saying.
Thank
you. Another question I had is just how are you going to deal with heavily intoxicated patrons or somebody who has too much to drink? Like, what's the plan in that regard, and how do you prevent that from spilling over into the community?
You sit the customer down, you feed them water, you have your security guard help them call themselves a car so they can get home safely. When there's a problem, we have our employees attend to it and make sure that that it's taken care of before it hits the community.
Okay. Any other questions from members of the committee?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, I see it. Thanks, Mr. Harrison. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I can't sit here and say that anything that the applicant has said is not truthful in the manner in which he understands or what he's representing. I have some experience, having lived around the corner and down the block from this locale, that the events that have happened in the past have been at a level of noise that they could be heard on Adelphi between DeKalb and Lafayette, let alone on Clermont between Lafayette and DeKalb. I'm a little bit, maybe, and I did listen, not quite clear. Is this going to be is the business model such that this is going to be like a sometimes thing at the temple, or is this going to be the main endeavor that takes place at the temple? Or
I can ask your question, Mr. Paneth. Is the primary use of the temple proposed to be for concerts, and maybe you could also specify what kind of music it's going to be?
Well, not just concerts, we're also going for comedy, we're going for dance performances,
Okay.
We're going for acting, theater, anything that helps me add to the community with events that the community would appreciate. Types of music can involve jazz, rock music, folk music, what other genres are. Yeah, just across the board, my role in this would be filling with the venue with things that add to the community in terms of all genres.
Are you taking any soundproofing measures? It said on your application that you were. I'm just wanted to understand what they were.
The measures, I'm not a tech person myself. The measures will be taken to ensure that it'll be whatever I need to do to ensure that the sound does not transfer to the neighbors.
I'd like to make another comment. My only concern is not, I don't think it has anything to do with the gentleman, but in the neighborhood and generally, parking is a real problem. It is a problem around there. I'm sure he's aware of that. What can you do? Are there any accommodations? What do you think of? What are your thoughts about that, apart from the bus passing by?
I don't believe most of the audience will be driving to the shows. The part for in terms of artist buses and whatnot, when we have nationally touring artists, the Masonic Temple has a backyard that we are able to use to make sure the bus is not, taking up multiple parking spots in the street. The G train is very close by. The Long Island Railroad to the Barclay Center is, I believe, 7 blocks away. And I think these days, most residents of New York City are either taking public transportation or rideshare to get to their concerts.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I hear what Kaswa is saying, and it is a concern. There is the parking lot next to it, but back to the issue of noise. I was the experiencer. I did have experience, having lived around the corner for a lengthy period of time, that almost any venue in which the numbers of persons were larger than a small gathering, meaning in excess of 100 people, became noisy, not so much by dint of the inside of the venue, but partially because of the parking lot and partially because of the way the building is constructed and sound getting out and bouncing on the walls of the temple as also the walls of the adjacent Catholic church. And to say that it's not really near a residential area, or it doesn't have residences, it's not entirely factually correct, because there are residences across from it, there are residents down the block. It really gets rather noisy historically, no matter what the venue was, whether it was whatever type of music. It wasn't based upon the music. It had to do with the way that building is designed and what it was being used for, which was a large event. I'm also a little concerned, and I'm sure the applicant said it, but I'm not quite clear what the hours of operation of these venues are going to be. Could you speak to that, sir?
Well,
in my hours of operation, I put my sales as 1 a.m. the latest. My events will be over, and I'm committing to my events being over by 11 or midnight the latest. There will be no dance parties going on. We are not in the business of that for the Masonic Temple. We very specifically want to do this in a way that's friendly for the neighborhood. If that wasn't the case, I would gladly go for a 4 a.m. license and make lots of profit on that. But it's not in my interest to do that, because I believe in being part of the neighborhood with this endeavor.
Are you familiar with what the hours were at the Masonic Temple previously?
They've only operated on temporary event licenses. There has not been a full license. So there had been no restriction on hours to my knowledge. I'm introducing a restriction on hours.
Are you flexible at all with the closing hours? 1 a.m. Because that's what the license is, 1 a.m.
1 a.m. I believe is reasonable if the interest isn't to go till 1 a.m. 1 a.m. is a round number that if someone wants to grab a final drink on the way out after midnight, that should be permitted. I'm flexible to hear and to hear complaints, and I believe 1 a.m. is reasonable for to have a final drink after the music is done on your way out.
Okay. I'm going to open it up to questions and comments from members of the public. And I see a gentleman has had his hand up for some time, and we'll definitely get folks' comments in, but just try to ask everyone, try not to be duplicative if we're going to have multiple comments. Mr. Frater Thompson, the floor is yours.
Hi, thanks. Appreciate it. My name's Seth Frater Thompson. I live directly next door to the property, across the parking lot. My property butts up against the Masonic Temple. I've lived in the neighborhood for, I think, 11 years. I also run a company that, clean energy software company that employs about 120 people. Our headquarters are in the district. Many of our employees are in the district. I do not think it's appropriate for this this use of the venue to move forward. Venue in general, I think you can tell from the chat today, the venue has a reputation for sort of raucous parties spilling out into the street until 2 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. We've had friends who lived on this block before we moved to the block who said that, you know, just by dint of sort of drunk party goers, they were often concerned with their safety on Friday and Saturday night. You know, there is a school across the street and a church directly next to the venue, definitely within 200 feet. My understanding is that that makes the venue not even eligible for a liquor license, and the community board wouldn't even have the discretion to grant one. It's also clear if you generally read online about comments from the neighbors that, you know, just going back years, there have been lots and lots of problems with noise from this venue. So I am very much against this.
Thank you, Mr. Frater Thompson. Just a quick point of clarification. Our committee and the community board as a whole does not grant liquor licenses. If we decide to approve or reject a given liquor license, we're making a recommendation to the state liquor authority. And at the state liquor authority, they will absolutely consider issues like the 200-foot rule, the 500-foot rule, all of those rules. But I appreciate you raising your comments, and I don't want to make it sound like they're not heard. I just wanted to make those clarifying statements. Ms. Morrison?
Hi, I'm Hallie Morrison. I'm also a direct neighbor of the temple, and I've lived within a few blocks of the temple for over a decade. I'm proud to be a neighbor of the temple, and they do put on some important community program, but I have a lot of real concerns with their ongoing operations and don't think that they're a good candidate for a liquor license. I'd like to speak on a few angles, and I'll start with the community impact. If you look at the Yelp reviews of this place, here's just a little sampling. This place is now basically an unlicensed club at weekends. It's turned a quiet residential street into a nightmare. Both nights this weekend, the crowd spilled into the street screaming and fighting with the police called both nights. Another one says, we live a block away from this place. On Friday and Saturday nights, there are parties until 4 a.m. The music tonight was so loud it shook our windows. That was somebody who said they lived a block away. People spill into the streets. This is a residential neighborhood, not a warehouse district. Another one says, I hate to be a downer, but this was honestly the worst venue I've ever been to, and I was a hardcore kid in the 90s who also went to outlaw raves. This place has charm, but it is not maintained as a venue for any sort of crowd. Another one says, if you want eyeball shaking bass that renders the rest of the song literally inaudible, then this place is your scene. Other ones reference unsanitary conditions, underage drinking, and other problems with the venue. So we can take from this and other testimony that we see in the chat tonight that they've been operating as an events venue and they have a reputation for being noisy and disruptive in the neighborhood. I've spoken to numerous neighbors on the street in the last few days, including some that I don't believe are on here who were elderly residents who have been living on the block for decades, who said that it's been a persistent problem for them. They have also pointed out persistently that the noise coming from this venue is louder and goes later than any activity coming from the restaurants and bars on the commercial stretch of Dekalb Avenue, which is directly on the other side of Clermont. So even though that's a stretch that has a bunch of restaurants and bars, that is not a problem, but the music and then the people spilling out of the venue create a lot of noise here. And they've also noted that when the attendees leave, they tend to linger on the street. You know, they're loud, they've been drinking, they sometimes litter or even cause damage to nearby properties. And, you know, we all know that nothing kills quality of life like not being able to get a good night's sleep. So I also just want to point out, it's been documented in the press, a 2010 Village Voice article titled, "Is the Brooklyn Masonic Temple the loudest venue in New York?" Noted it's on an incongruously quiet street in Greene, with shows so loud they drew the cops. And a 2009 New York Times article referred to one of the live music shows like sonar drills on your guts. While the New Yorker in 2009 had their music critic suggested that the venue is so loud because it is not subject to the same rules as commercial music venues. This is not a music venue or club. It's an architecturally notable building on a landmark block in Fort Greene Historic District, which is a very residential area. In fact, it's classified as a rectory and a house of worship. And so far as I can tell, it doesn't pay property taxes because it is listed as a house of worship. So I don't believe it should be eligible for a liquor license. The distance to the church and the high school should certainly be taken into account. I mean, it's also a church itself technically, so that should be taken into account. I also just want to
Ms.
point out.
Morrison, if you could just try to wrap it up really quick, because
Yep.
we try to keep it to 2 minutes. You're a little over 2 minutes at this point. If you
So
want
the
to make a
interior of the
concluding statement,
exterior
that would be
are
fine.
really in need of repairs. It's documented in the historic preservation community that sound vibrations damage historic buildings. So much so that like the Victoria and Albert Museum did not have a heavy metal show that they planned because they considered that one show was going to potentially permanently damage that well cared for historic building. So when you have really loud venues persistently, it is potentially not just disruptive, but dangerous. They currently have an existing stop work order from the DOB for a dangerous exterior condition. That's the kind of thing that might be exacerbated by masonry crumbling from the noise waves, which sound waves are real. They cause damage just like earthquake waves. So I just have a lot of concerns. I feel like the operator, we don't know, what his association is to the Masonic Temple, what other, clubs. I just learned what clubs he operates tonight. I haven't been able to look into whether they have violations.
Ms. Morrison. Thank you.
A lot of questions, a lot of concerns. Would love to see something wonderful happen here. Thank you, but I don't think this is it.
Thank you. Ms. Thurston, you had your hand up too.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon. I do have a question for you, for Mr. Pan at the BAU, but first I just want to be very clear with folks what the purview of this application is. It is for a liquor license, and to Brandon's point, we don't grant the liquor license. All of the stipulations that folks are noting will be taken into account by the SLA. Even if we approve this, there's still other guardrails in place for those sorts of details. So I wouldn't worry about that. That's all going to be reviewed by the SLA. What I will, my question is, because a lot of that was not current and is a bit of hearsay. My question for the applicant, Brandon, if this is okay, is have you been the manager while these events have been spilling onto the street and there have been parties until early in the morning? And
No.
let me restate that. How long have you been managing this location, and has that happened under your watch?
I am applying as a new applicant. I have not been part of any parties. They cleared their calendar when I started working on this, and unless something slipped under the shared calendar we have, I don't believe there are any. And I am hearing the community in this meeting saying that there's something loud bass music to all hours. And I just want to reiterate, that's exactly why I'm applying, is to not have thumping bass music or have late hours of operation. Music does not happen past midnight.
Thanks. I really implore people to listen to the applicant. I mean, we have to take everyone at their word, and that's very relevant information. Thank you.
All right. Was there anyone else who hasn't spoken already who had a comment or a question on this?
Yes, I have.
Mr. Paneth, you've spoken already. I'm just asking, do we miss anybody else?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Andrews, yes.
question. Will the Board of Elections still be able to rent that location for early voting? Because a lot of people actually turn out there to vote. So I'm just wondering.
All right. I don't know if the applicant's going to be able to answer that question. Mr. Paneth, do you know whether the Board of Elections is still going to be using the location?
Yes, I will point out that Mr. Matthew Kelly is with me. But yes, I will not engage in any operation that will prohibit the Board of Elections from operating. I hold that as very dear principle.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
We
you,
have
sir.
one other person put their hand up. This will be the last comment here. Mr. David Kennedy.
Yeah, thank you. David Kennedy, I live around the corner on Adelphi. I've been listening in here. I don't see that there's any way whatsoever that an operation of the kind that's being proposed can operate in this location without being profoundly disruptive of the community. And hearing the applicant say this is not close to residences is, I think, in and of itself disqualifying. That indicates either an extreme degree of disingenuousness or a complete lack of understanding about this neighborhood.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I appreciate you sharing that.
Mr. Chairman.
I'm sorry, Mr. Is that Mr.
My name is Matthew Kelly. I'm Mr. Paneth's employer. I've been standing here throughout the meeting with while he was going on waiting. I just wanted to speak on Mr. Paneth's behalf, if I may.
Well, if you can keep it to a minute, then I'll give you a minute.
Thanks, Commissioner. All good. I understand. Okay. Mr. Paneth has been working with me the past 8 years here at Appeal Room. He's been my beverage director and my bartender and a trusted team of my management. He is my management. He has always been a responsible, approachable, and a reasonable young man. I own 2 bars on the Lower East Side, and I've always had a personal credo of being a good neighbor and operating in good faith. And Mr. Paneth has not only executed my vision, but I know it's part of his makeup, and any community would benefit from having him as a license holder. He knows how to be a good neighbor, and I thank you for giving us our time and giving me consideration. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I'm going to ask now if anyone on the committee has a motion that they want to make.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second
Till
from
1 a.m.
Mr. Andrews. Now discussion on the motion. Mr. Paneth, the hours proposed are to 1 a.m. Do you have any flexibility to move that back to say like, I don't know, midnight? Can't hear you, sorry. You're on mute.
Mr. Paneth, you're muted.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, when Mr. Kelly got up, he accidentally kicked the cable, and now we are back. I'm happy to have all music done by midnight. Everyone out by 1. You know, ideally everyone out by 12:15, 12:30. I hope the board can agree with me that that's reasonable.
Well, we're not here to necessarily regulate music. We're here to regulate liquor. Will the liquor sales stop at midnight?
Liquor sales, 12:30. I just want people to be able to get one final beer as they're hanging out with their friend. 90% of the crowd leaves the room and goes on their way to their next plans of the night. Generally, music will be over between 11 and midnight. And I would love to be able to.
It might be worth considering that you can come back when you're up for renewal and or in the meantime and ask for an adjustment. So if you've demonstrated you've been a good neighbor, as I have faith you will, it might be a good time then to ask for an extension of hours. Just something to consider.
That is fair. And sitting in this meeting, I have found the members of this committee to be fair. And I agree. We can stop serving at midnight, and I will prove myself to the community and then reapply. Thank you so much.
Mr. Paneth, another thing I wanted to mention is just, I feel like soundproofing is really a critical aspect of this being successful. Like, you can be as good-hearted a person as you want, but if you're playing music, people in the street will be able to hear it if you don't have soundproofing. And I think we expect that we can understand that you may not have, the kind of tech expertise to talk about soundproofing as an expert, but I would expect as a condition of the motion that you would engage someone who does have that expertise and put in adequate soundproofing to ensure that the establishment isn't disruptive to the rest of the neighborhood. Is that something that you'll be willing to do?
I'm willing to ensure that the volumes of my sound system do not exceed the legal limit, and we will do every soundproofing within our ability to ensure that.
Well, that's the condition that I'd like to put on the motion. Any other committee members have comments on the motion?
Actually, I do, Mr. Chair. Have lived around the and accessory.
We can't hear you, Mr. Harrison. Maybe turn your video off.
Harrison, could you turn your video off and your microphone on? You appear to be frozen. Okay, go ahead now. Can you say something?
Yeah.
Okay, there you are.
So that. So just simply, based on the testimony that's come from the neighbors who reside, unless I misunderstand, I think I don't, on the block. In my experience, having lived around the corner in excess of 23 years, I understand the compromise, I guess, Mr. Chair, the case to work out with the applicant and the testimony, which I believe to be honest in the applicant's efforts to try to hear and work with the committee and the neighborhood towards mitigating any sound problems. I will tell you it's experience and what even the neighbors, since I don't live right around the corner, is quite, and it's based upon maybe some of his work, but probably much of his works. It's really impossible to mitigate loud sounds coming out of him because of some things I've stated and others I haven't. This will not go down well.
All right. Any other committee members have comments or questions or concerns at this point? All right, well, on the conditions that have been proposed and stated, I vote to approve. Ms. Thurston, how do you vote?
Very much in favor.
Mr. Harrison?
Very much against.
Okay. Mr. Harrison votes no. Mr. Andrews?
In favor.
Ms. Cobb?
If the conditions as stated is taken into consideration, yes.
Okay. Ms. McKnight?
I'm with Ms. Cobbs. I think the stipulations we put in place would need to be followed. If they are followed, then I say yes. But I do have concerns about the noise.
Right. Okay. So it's approved on those conditions with regards to the earlier closing at midnight and the soundproofing. I
Thank you.
expect, we expect that you'll be engaged with the local community, and that if anyone expresses any concern to you, that you'll take action to immediately address it, whether it be, further limiting your hours, further working to hold different kinds of events, and really hope that you'll have an open dialogue with this community so that you can actually be hopefully in partnership in your views at some point in the future, because it does seem like there are some concerns, and I can't say that anyone doesn't feel like there are concerns. It's definitely going to be some noise, but we want you to have a shot, and we want you to put measures in place that'll make sure that the noise is mitigated. So it's on you to do that, and you also have to take these issues up with the SLA too.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I appreciate all the input from everyone for and against, and I hope the neighbors and Mr. Harrison will see that if I'm approved and I start operating, that I am going to do as I say and be a good neighbor.
Okay. We wish you luck and hope that will turn out to be the case.
Thank you.
All right. Moving along on tonight's agenda, we've got, I want to go back to item number 4, approval of the minutes from the April meeting. Does anybody want to make a motion for those minutes?
I make a motion.
Okay, and do we have a second? Second from Ms. Cobb. Discussion sorry for discussion. Does anybody oppose or abstain from voting on last month's minutes? Jessica, maybe you want to abstain because you were not here?
That's fair. I'll abstain.
Okay. Jessica abstains. Everyone else approves. Thank you to Nicole for taking the minutes last month. All right. Chairperson's report. I'm gonna, in light of the hour and in light of the need to just have a quick discussion about the health fair, I'm gonna table my chairperson's report for the month. We do have our final meeting next month, and district needs will be a priority. We spoke about them earlier in detail. I would ask if you join the meeting late, if you can watch the video online from the beginning part. Ms. Miller gave an excellent presentation about the district need process, the kind that we haven't had in years, and I would really encourage you to go back and review it, and I'll send out an email about it afterwards too. Now on other business, I want to talk about the health fair really quickly and hopefully get anybody's feedback on this, because particularly Ms. Masso has been very active in the past month trying to get people together for this health fair, trying to get businesses. We've filed the permit. The permit is pending. We've learned that there is a separate event going on the same day in the park, a separate health fair actually going on the same day in the park from the Friends of Commodore Barry Park. But we are partnering with them and they're supportive of us. We're supportive of them. So we're going to work with them. And the basics are, it's going to be 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturday, June 25th, what we agreed to last time, in the handball court / multi-purpose area in the park. And the folks that we've already made contact with is first and foremost Brooklyn Hospital is going to be there, and we have Mr. Singletary's great support in that regard to ensure that we have some of their services, and we're going to work to try to expand the services that are going to be there. But in total, Ms. Masso has been able to secure commitments from Brooklyn Book Bodega, the Department of the Aging. Our old friend Nan Blackshear, who works there, is going to be supporting that. Metro Plus is going to participate. Wegmans has agreed to participate. We are speaking with the 88th precinct, and their officer is it's contingent on getting the permit, but we're pretty optimistic about the permit. Cumberland Hospital is going to participate, and Ms. Massa was able to get a radio station 99.5 to help promote our event, which is nice. And we're working on getting someone to speak about Alzheimer's disease. There's definitely going to be blood pressure screening, because blood pressure screening is going to come with Brooklyn Hospital, and I think it's also going to come with Cumberland. We may have to kind of discuss how to differentiate it out a little bit more, because I don't want to necessarily have two people there offering the same service. But I think where we are is we could really, and we've also reached out to some politicians too. And Council Member Lincoln Ressler has agreed to support us and is willing to be engaged. We've also reached out to Council Member, what's the other one? I'm forgetting. Crystal Hudson.
Crystal.
Yes, that's right. We're working with her office. I don't know. We might benefit from an additional connection if anyone knows Crystal Hudson.
Yeah, I'll help.
Thanks. I believe we also spoke with Congress member Hakeem Jeffries, and expect that he indicated that he's going to be there. So hopefully that will be an interesting thing. I don't know if we formally have confirmed that, but we definitely spoke to him because we did some recognizance of a different health fair that he was hosting, and ran into him there. And I think I've got just about everybody. In terms of the panel, the plan is it's going to be 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. But these we're trying to be respectful of the Friends of the Commodore Berry Park. Their event is going to go from 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. and they're particularly going to have some events going on at 2 p.m. That we don't want to disturb. So we've got to kind of get our noise tuned down before 2 p.m. And I think the plan is to have the panel around 12 noon. But we're kind of flexible on who we can add to the panel. We have Mr. Singletary has said he's going to get somebody from Brooklyn Hospital who's going to speak from a maternal care perspective. I've been hopeful and am going to try to engage one channel of communication to try to get somebody from Borough Hall who's on that new task force that the borough president has put together on maternal mortality, which I think would be great. But I think the areas that we really could need additional feedback and support on are really additional panelists, particularly if we want to add something that isn't maternal mortality, healthcare related for this panel. I thought we were going to have originally some kind of general healthcare kind of perspective, maybe somebody who's like a mental health expert or a different maybe an academic expert would be helpful. But that would be one area, other people for the panel. The other thing is that other services beyond blood pressure, like we've learned that going through this process that the better way to do it would have been probably to do it 6 months or more ahead of time, because there's been some challenges getting different providers to come forward because they're already booked or their van is out somewhere else at this point. But I would really like to know what other services or health needs people would like to see at this fair, and just kind of solicit comments from the committee about this, so that we can this is our chance, like right now as a group, to discuss it and see if there's anything that we can get out of it. So I don't know. Is there anything that anyone on the committee wanted to add or raise or about the fair?
Brandon, I just wanted to go over a few things you mentioned.
Sure.
I think we also got the mayor's office on mental health or
Oh, that's
community mental
right.
health. They responded and said that they would send us information, and another person dealing with mental health within the city agency is going to see if she can send a staff member. As far as the panel, I was thinking about logistically, how would we set that up? And you're stating that since we're partnering with another group inside the park, do you think like we have the capacity to do the panel, or is that something we might want to do later? Because I'm thinking about having to have the chairs set up. You might need a tent, you need various things, and then you need to pull people to come and sit down and listen to the discussion.
Right.
So we would need to consider that if we're having a panel discussion, because based on the fact that it's 10 to 4, now I'm thinking, do we really need it? But
okay,
yeah. And I know Latrell tried to have a mammogram truck and also another one. And that's where you were mentioning, you usually get those 6 months prior to the event. I have an associate of mine that mentioned it. There might be another organization that also has something like that. And Latrell, I can share that with you tomorrow to see if maybe we can reach out to them. I have it in my notes somewhere. I think it's something with the Italian Americans.
I checked with them. They're booked for June 25th already.
Oh, so you already checked with them. Okay.
But I did speak to Lincoln's land use. Hold on, I'm really bad with names. It starts with an A. Somebody from Lincoln's office, and he gave me a form to fill out for a contact for a mobile unit. So
oh, great.
I'm going to do that tomorrow.
So that's wonderful. So what I was also thinking, maybe we can have the city come in with their vans or set up something for COVID testing or vaccination. Did you do that too?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Miss Williams is waiting for the flyer that we discussed. So she gets the flyer, she'll confirm the date with us. But remind you, on the 30th, the COVID test and trace is closing down. So that unit is closing down as of June 30th. We don't know if it's going to be extended, but she says soon she gets the flyer from us, she can try to make sure that we get the van to come for testing. And we also have emergency management. They're coming in too that day.
Oh yeah, yep.
So they'll be there that particular day. And Kate from Cat from the local library, they're going to do story time on healthy eating and wellness.
Yeah, I think that's going to be great.
But can I just say, I wanted to thank Nicole and Monique and Lindsay and Emily and me for helping support me. I greatly appreciate that. Not that everybody else, I was just speaking of the people who, just been helping me along.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, Ms. Masso. And I don't know, do you have an opinion about the panel at this point? I think I wouldn't say we have to do it or we don't have to do it, but I'm just honestly interested in your point of view on this.
I mean, if we do the panel, if we get the tents and the chairs, if we do it from 12 to 1 like you suggested, and we finish by, I think their event starts at 2 o'clock.
Right.
So I think we'll be fine. Because the panel shouldn't go over an hour, right? Because keep people attention.
Yeah, I mean, we can make it for as long as we want to, but I think we can, it's reasonable to do it for an hour. They know that we're going to do a panel and they're not objecting to that. They said they'd be supportive. The Commodore Berry people. I don't know. I think it can work. We just, and honestly, I planned 1 million panels before, so I feel like it won't be too hard to do. We just have to get the speakers together, have a prep call and try to make sure that we have a balanced, diverse group that is presenting. And when it comes to tables and chairs, we got kind of a somewhat of an offer from the Brooklyn Navy Yard to help us with that, but I'm not sure we fully have confirmed it. Yeah. Well, maybe that's something we can talk about offline in terms of getting the tables and chairs, because I think, obviously you're going to need the tables and chairs to do this. And the other thing I'll just mention is that the Parks Department people really don't want there to be any vehicles in the park. They made me confirm that when I filled out the permit. So if we do get any vans, I think it'll be wonderful. We'll just have to keep them at a distance away from the event, because the Parks Department doesn't want them coming in the park. Any other comments or questions or thoughts on the health fair?
Any suggestions or feedback so far?
Yeah, I don't think we have anything else from anybody on this. We can pick this up with the group that we've been working on to plan it. All right. Next up on the agenda, I didn't mean to commandeer all the other business. Does anyone have any other business committee members to raise at this meeting? Hearing none, go forward on the next item on the agenda, community forum. This is the part of the meeting where members of the community can voice their thoughts and issues, anything that they want to raise. This is your time. Feel free to raise your hand and we'll put you on the floor. All right. So with no other business going forward, at this point, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Does anybody
Move to adjourn.
Approve.
Okay. So I can't tell who went first, but I think it was Victor. Mr. Andrews with the motion, Mr. Harrison with the second. Anybody object or abstain? No, we all unanimously approve. Oh, I retract all of that. I retract everything. Everyone stay here. Don't leave. We still have everybody, right? Thank God. Before we do all that, there are a bunch of renewals that we have to quickly hear about. I don't want to miss this part of the agenda. 73J, Pedro's, 125 Flatbush, the Hampton Inn, 647 Fulton, Brick, 139 Montague Custom House, 166 Smith, 6 Ward, 62 Court, O'Keefe's, 1 South Elliott, Cafe Paulette, 200 Willoughby, AVI Food Systems, 114 Montague, Lassen and Hennings, 499 Myrtle, Los Politos. Wait. These others are there's a notice of alteration for Los Politos, where they're seeking to add a 10 by 4-foot service bar at the rear of the existing restaurant. There will be no customer seating at the bar as per law. And there's something about a notice of temporary license for the, I'm going to leave that for post this discussion, but Miss Muller, for the renewals and the notice of alteration that I just listed, has there been any concerns or complaints from members of the community about these different establishments?
None.
Okay. Anyone here in the public or board members or committee members want to express a concern about any of these renewals or the notice of alteration? Hearing none, I make a motion that we approve the renewals as well as the notice of alteration.
Second,
Second by Victor. Any discussion? Hearing none. Does anybody oppose or abstain from this motion? Okay, the renewals as well as the notice of alteration have all been unanimously approved. Ms. Muller, could I just ask you, what is the nature of these two notice of temporary licenses?
Yeah, no problem. The temp license is that new accommodation that the SLA is providing as a response to their COVID backup. So the temporary license, I think it first showed up as an option on the application on December 31st of 2021, so only a few months. The temp license is a 30-day guaranteed administrative turnaround by the SLA for approval of a 90-day temporary license. And the community board is actually not involved in that. And the SLA has been very clear that temp licenses are basically guaranteed an administrative approval. It's just to help the businesses be able to temporarily serve while they are waiting for their full liquor license to go through process. And actually both of these applicants, Dinner Party and Textbook Coffee, have actually already been approved by the board for their licenses. But as has been stated before, the SLA is running, is very behind. They're currently 22 to 26 weeks for a full approval. So this is just a stopgap measure.
Okay.
So it's just, that's why it's just a notice.
Okay. All right. At this point, I'll ask if anybody wants to make a motion about the two temporary licenses.
make a motion.
Okay. I'll second your motion, Victor. With regard to 86 South Portland and which is Dinner Party LLC, as well as 118 Dekalb. Is there anybody on the call, public, board member, committee member, who has any concern about these items? All right, hearing none. If anybody is opposed or abstains to approving these temporary licenses, please say so now. Hearing none, the temporary licenses are approved. And I'll now re-entertain the motion to adjourn for tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
Which is Mr. Andrews, seconded by Mr. Harrison. And does anyone oppose or abstain? No. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening.
You too. Good night, everyone.
Good night.